Hey everybody, I'm coming to you today from Toms River, New Jersey, where we have the River Lady riverboat just behind us, and we'll do a little bit of chatting here. So I decided to come up to New Jersey and spend a little bit of time with my dad. He's recently had a couple of health issues, recovered, doing great, but it's nice to spend some time with our parents, especially as they start getting older. You know, it's not lost on me when they live separately how difficult it is to, I don't know, to feel like you stay close. And sure, you have that conversation on the phone or you do it over a video chat, but it's just not the same as sort of being there. So anyway, I'm up here. I'm going to show you around, do a little bit of sightseeing, show you some of the cool things in this particular area, and I'll teach you a little bit about where I grew up. So this is kind of cool. This here is something called the River Lady, and it's on the Toms River, which is a freshwater basin that goes into the ocean. We're only probably 8 miles or so from the Atlantic, but this is kind of neat. This is a little tour. They'll take you all around here in town, show you some historic sites and whatnot. Anyway, we've done this a couple of times over the years. I haven't done it in, gosh, over 15 years. You know, my dad and I might have to come do this one day. It could be a lot of fun, but it's a pretty looking boat for sure. A little chilly. I don't know if they're running this time of year. It is the first part of April, and like today it's in the, I don't know, high 40s, low 50s. Sure looks like something you'd see in Louisiana, doesn't it? Like something that belongs on the Delta down south. It is pretty neat. It's right here along this waterfront of, again, what they call the Toms River, and this little restaurant here that we've definitely had dinner at a few times. It's nice. And what's cool is as we scroll along this restaurant and kind of go over the waterfront, I'm going to be shining the camera into the sunrise, so we'll see how well the camera adjusts to it. But it really is a pretty little trip right out of this, the edge of this harbor. I guess it's probably the end of the Toms River. So Toms River, New Jersey is this little town. Oh, it's probably 10 to 12 miles inland from the east coast of the U.S. in New Jersey. And it's funny, having grown up here, right? This is a beautiful state. I don't know if you know it. New Jersey is the Garden State. That's its name. And what's interesting is so many people think of New Jersey and they think of that opening scene of Tony Soprano driving in his car through, you know, Elizabeth and Newark, New Jersey, in the city. It's just not like that. It's beautiful. And where I think about how I grew up, we rode our bikes in this, you know, neighborhood, and we rode through the woods and trails, and you know, we'd go to the beach on the weekends, and you know, that was the New Jersey. Heck, it was more rural than where I grew up in Dallas later on in life. So shocking. It's really shocking that the perception versus what the reality is here. This is pretty cool. I'm walking by this big old anchor. Let me show you what that is. We think of an anchor like that little thing we drop off of our bow rider or our sailboat. And then this thing is monstrous. To put this in perspective, there's my coffee next to just one of these links on this chain here. That's the bolt there. Isn't that amazing? You get a sense for it. I mentioned this being the Garden State, and you can see spring's not quite here, but boy, it's peeking out with all these dogwood trees or whatever they are. It's beautiful with the flowers all coming on them. Still a little early. Gosh, in another few weeks, they'll probably be absolutely beautiful and all in bloom. All right, I just saw a place I got to try. Let me show you what this is. We'll order it. We'll see how it is. This is Uncle Dude's Hot Hand-Dipped Donuts. We got to try one. Here we have them. We have a car bomb, a grave digger, a PBO. I don't remember what that one was. And then we have a bunny poop. All crazy looking donuts. And then over here we've got this one. It is a jelly-filled donut with a peanut butter cream on top. I got that one in a separate one because that one I'm going to eat. And then I obviously have my coffee. And you know me, like, I decided I would come right over here. It's still winter enough time that all the boats are out of the water, but again, you know, I feel very at home at marinas. I don't know why. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. So they're doing a little bit of work here on the docks at the marina, but man, just a beautiful, beautiful area. I love the fact that just right here, got houses right along the water, and I'll turn all the way around into this marina and get a sense of what it looks like. It's a pretty good sized marina too. Look at that, so pretty. This Real nice. This is right out here along the waterfront side. Little lighthouse to indicate where the marina is, and a nice swimming pool. It's a nice little yacht club. Hey, even have some shuffleboard over here. Look at that. See if the camera picks this up. I mentioned that this goes all the way out, ultimately to the Intercoastal Waterway into the Atlantic Ocean. It's right on down there. I'm really not sure why, but it's interesting. Just being along the water is always one of those things that, I don't know, brings me peace, makes me feel great. So I'm glad I'm doing this little walk around. It's Easter Sunday morning as I'm actually filming this, so a lot of things are closed and it's just beautiful and quiet outside. Right on the other side here, if you notice, you can see that little red and white lighthouse directly there. That's the marina where we were just before. It's just so beautiful. I love the fact that this is brackish water and it looks this calm in here. You can keep your boat here, and in 30 minutes with a boat that scoots along, you can be in the Atlantic Ocean. You can see this is just a little further down the Toms River along the south side of the river, and we're kind of looking there toward that bridge. That's a little bit north and east. That's actually Highway 37 that runs east out to Seaside Heights, which is right on the Atlantic. And now we're sort of pointing due north and starting to swing inland toward the west. It's just gorgeous out here. I said, sights are nice. It's not that opening scene from The Sopranos. Alright, so I was driving by and this place looked really interesting. It was sort of marshy on both sides of the road, and I saw this building, kind of wondering what it was. I'm like, alright, I gotta go back and sort of check this thing out. And as I walked up, it was, all chained up and the gate locked and whatnot. Definitely an older building, definitely abandoned, but as you kind of poke in here and look, like, you can really see this thing is pretty run down. Must have an interesting history. I'm looking it up. Cool, as I zoomed in on the map, I can kind of see this area. You can see the area right there I'm circling. It's the Ocean Gate Radio Transmission Center, and I can see all that marshland out there, which was really kind of interesting. And I even zoomed in. It looks like there's almost like a little path or road that kind of goes through it. So time to look up what that is, and it's got an interesting history. I'd love to share it with you. This was really interesting. This place is an AT&T long lines location in Ocean Gate, New Jersey. And it says Ocean Gate was a high-frequency shortwave radio transmitting station that provided telephone communications to ships at sea, a high-sea service. It also did it to oversea locations under the call sign WOO for Ocean Gate. Don't know how they got to that. What's interesting is in 1958, it was one of only 19 coast stations that were authorized to have open correspondence with aircraft. Really kind of neat. I even found a newspaper article from 1930 that I'll share some details and some photographs from, which is a cool history. So this was actually part of the Toms River Center of Ship-to-Shore Telephone Systems. This article is from March 14th of 1930 in the Toms River Courier newspaper. And it talks about the fact that construction was now being done by the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, you know as AT&T, are going to make Toms River an important part of radio telephone systems that's expected to eventually link the Bell System telephones with principal liners in the Atlantic Ocean. Ship-to-shore telephone services was formally inaugurated in December of 1929 when passengers on the Leviathan actually were able to speak to people in different cities as far west as California and in Washington. The service is available to the entire Bell system, and as of now, it's only confined to the Leviathan. That was in December of 1929, but it was ultimately going to be extended by larger volumes of passenger ships given the building of this. And this was the transmission station at Ocean Gate. And that's what I actually saw here. It's actually located on 175 acres of salt marshes across from the river on Toms River, and then unobstructed seaward, which has made it suitable for radio transmission in that direction out to sea in the Atlantic. Really interesting facts about this thing too. The building is to be a modernistic in exterior design. It was going to accentuate the vertical lines and was so arranged that it can be extended at the sides or toward the front if it needed future additional growth.
couple other things that were really interesting. The structure is just under 80 feet across and 50 feet deep. It's 2 stories high, had a small basement in one end of it for a heating plant. And on the first floor would be the generation of supply current, the power required for the transmitters and the transformers that raise the outside power supply to the various required voltages, as well as some other machinery. The transformers, which were sort of an unusual size for power back in the 1930s, were going to be set in vaults of rugged construction with specifically heavy foundations. This was so sort of advanced at the time that they needed a water cooling system that would provide large vacuum tubes the cooling they required in the final stages of the transmitters. They also had large air blowers that would cool that circulating water. I think it's really interesting when you think about that technology in the 1930s. On that first floor was also going to be a line terminal room, and this is where all the wire lines from the long distance offices would terminate. So think of the ground lines coming into that. The entire room was completely sheathed with copper, which prevented the radio waves from the antennas outdoors impacting that transmission. And on the second floor, they had the transmitting set. So in the rear of that was a series of rectifiers that were going to convert the alternating current, the AC current, from the outside power sources into the DC current required to run, get this, the vacuum tubes that were in the construction of this early sort of antenna system. The other thing was the entire structure of the building had to be reinforced with concrete. The exterior walls were 12 inches of brick with furrings on the inside, 2-inch furrings on the inside. I just found this whole thing really, really fascinating. One of the things they said was initially one transmitter was going to be installed at this Ocean Gate facility in 1930. There would be a similar set for those that were now in use in late 1929 for transatlantic telephone service from another station not too far away in Lawrenceville. But here's what's interesting. This thing needed a power supply of 15 kilowatts, and it will be maintained at the desired frequency by means of a quartz crystal control circuit. The crystals for this circuit were being located in heat-insulated ovens, the temperature of which is accurately and automatically regulated. Here's what's interesting about the output of this thing. In the final or output stages of the transmission, there were going to be 6 10-kilowatt wave-cooled vacuum tubes operating at a place of at a plate voltage of about 10,000 volts. Isn't that amazing? So out in that marshland behind it is where the actual antenna were. There were 2 antennas that will be what they call the curtain type, consisting of network of wires in the form of coarse mesh curtains. It was going to be suspended from 70-foot poles. It was called a rhombic antenna. That was the type of antenna that was used. I just found this completely fascinating, and as I've been talking about this, I've been showing all the pictures of the equipment inside. And again, these photos were taken in 2004, long after it had been closed. However, you can see that this equipment was from back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s as they upgraded throughout the years. Really interesting to see those early stages of communication.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I really found that fascinating. I saw that building and then I came back and I started researching what it was, and I learned about these rhombic antennas that had this really long-range way of sending a transmission signal. I found it fascinating. I was also looking at the voltage required in those big buildings, and 15,000 kilowatts. I was like, oh, that's a lot. And then you start comparing it to modern day equipment and it's not all that much, but it was really interesting back then, especially reading newspaper articles from 1930. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this little view of Toms River. It's along the east coast of New Jersey. It's kind of a cool little place, a cool little town, and I hope to find some other interesting little things that I can record and do while I'm up here. All right, y'all, safe and happy traveling, not grilling this week. Bye now. Be safe.